Helldivers 2 is Sony's Screw You by Louis Rossmann.
Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope you're having a lovely day. Welcome to today's episode of How You're Getting F***ed. I'm your host, Louis Rossmann. Today we're going to be digging into a game called Helldivers and how Sony has decided to deal with customers with regards to this game. This is a game where you used to be able to just buy it on Steam, you log into Steam and you play the game. Now to be clear, I'm already not exactly happy at the entire concept if I have to log into something like Steam. What if something happens to Steam and I can't play my game? Now what they've decided to do is tell people that have purchased this game, not only do you need a Steam account, you also need a PlayStation Network account if you actually want to be able to log in and play the game. Now,
So that is actually a very good, hey, I have no idea what's going on with this situation, or I've heard of this situation, I don't know what's going on, right? Very good introduction to that. So those curious about Louis Rossmann, he is a right to repair advocate. He, I think, has a store based out of New York. I think he's currently in Texas right now, but awesome individual. I followed him for a period of time. And generally, he has some very cool, very interesting things to say. And when something goes on, such as a right to repair thing, such as talking about Sony and talking about EULAs and stuff like that, talking about contracts, talking about anything that can change in the terms of service, right? Excellent individual to watch.
And you may wonder, why does this matter? Why is this important? Why do you care? Just make another account to play your game. And that's a great question. Why should anybody care? Just make another account so you could play your game, right? Not a big deal. Just another site to log into. Most people who are watching this video probably have 100 or 200 different website logins at this point in time. Well, that's a great question, and I'm going to give you a great answer.
Yes, I'm ready.
We have a lot of shit that we deal with nowadays with products where we purchase them, and then they change the terms after the sale. And 99% of the time that the terms change after the sale, it is not for our benefit as consumers. Whether we're talking about Ubisoft taking games offline because they're required to connect to a server to work, it gets taken offline. We're talking about Arlo cameras, where they advertise certain features and functionality in the product, and then they take that feature and functionality away because the camera is not talking to your local server to enable these features, it's talking to somebody else's. And
So actually, as somebody who had a family member go shopping recently, they were going shopping for a TV very specifically. One of the big questions I asked, because they were looking at a specific brand of TV, and I asked, hey, is this going to be, one of those things like the Roku thing where it's going to hold your TV, quote unquote, hostage because you have to agree to this new arbitration clause, this arbitration policy? Something that I myself am very passionate about. Yes, there are situations where cameras, right, where you buy them and they have certain functionality, but because they update the terms of service, because they update how it has to happen, unless you pay a subscription fee, unless you do something that you do, unless they consent to something, they will actually lock you out of your purchase. Now, this is not dissimilar to games such as, what I think was Lawbreakers, right, around Black Ops 3 time, or anything, even Final Fantasy 14 and modern MMOs are not, they run afoul of this, where they are a live service. They are something that you pay for. They are something that you pay an active sub fee for. And as soon as those servers go offline, they're done. Now, there are weird exceptions, such as Star Wars Galaxies. I don't know how fans have been able to piece that together, but realistically, for all intents and purposes, if you are paying for a game such as Call of Duty Warzone, and you're spending money on skins and micro and macro transactions, normalize the term macro transactions if it's over like $5, come on people, and if you are actively spending money into that, and then they suddenly go, well, we're moving over to Warzone 2, what about all my purchases? Well, we're moving over to Warzone 2, we understand, but unfortunately we are just moving on at this time. All of that just goes down the money. That's any live service, any game like that, Destiny, Warframe, etc., anything that's not stored natively on your system, you do run the risk of losing it. And that is something that he brought up earlier in regards to Steam. What if something happens to Steam? What if I'm in a situation where I can't access Steam? What if something gets pulled from Steam, right? Although in that case, I do have games that are no longer on Steam. I know Deadpool is a famous game that is no longer on Steam because of how Disney acquired Marvel back in the day. I think there are still ways that you can download that purchase, but that is one of those things that, what happens if Steam no longer offers it? So something to just consider, unless you have the physical disc, unless you have physical media with it, all you're paying for is effectively an access key to access the product you have purchased for. Realistically, in certain cases, such as Sony apparently leasing, because remember, was it not Sony who was saying they would remove stuff from your account, paid content from your account because of a discovery, a lapse in discovery terms of service and stuff like that, right? Oh, well, it's due to us not getting the licensing and stuff, so now we're going to leak stuff from your account, which received a lot of pushback. Sony, safety, and security are not three words that go in a sentence together, much less not just because of the 2011 hack of PSN, which is the actual reason, or at least one of the leading reasons, into why PSN is only accessible by 69 countries in the world, approximately. It also has to do with, in 2023 alone, just doing basic Google research, there were 2 incidents with Sony in regards to employees' information. Sony safety security, especially in the cyber division, doesn't quite inspire confidence in me.
Of course, you cannot have it attached to your local server. We could talk about a baby monitor, which it was $400 because it would have certain features that you would be able to use perpetually, and now they changed it into a subscription after you paid $400 for a baby monitor.
Right.
Or we could talk about something like these cloud-connected cameras, where they actually decided that they were just going to fundamentally just disable the product after you bought and purchased it, which is, one of those things that really does cut against the word bought and purchased. Or we could talk about Roku, where they decided that they were going to force you into a forced arbitration agreement and not let you hit disagree. And if you don't hit agree, well, sucks to suck. You don't get access to your television anymore. Screw you and your HDMI input. We're just going to have this on your screen all the time.
I think that is absolutely disgusting. I think a lot of companies have gotten too comfortable pushing products and changes like this, where, we'll just change this TOS. You must agree to our arbitration agreement. We'll hold your TV hostage. We'll hold your product hostage. First of all, F your arbitration agreement. I have no positive view on arbitration. I'm sure there's a lawyer somewhere or someone out there that can actually, be like, arbitration is good in this situation. Effectively, what arbitration is, instead of, say, suing somebody, it goes through a third-party median, as far as I'm aware, generally a retired judge, and it gets kind of settled out of court to avoid the expenses of a lawsuit, that kind of thing. So arbitration is one of those things that I actually do frown upon in a market, really, where businesses and a lot of big businesses don't seem to have that accountability, which is why when I hear people about like Louis Rossmann talk about it, or when I go to a business that I feel respects my time, respects my purchase, wants me, makes me feel valid as a consumer and a customer, I praise them. I'm not just another cog in the machine that they're just going to, flip a switch and suddenly my stuff doesn't work.
So the requirement that people log into a different account for a game to work is not something in and of itself that would aggravate the community. I believe this aggravates the community in the broader context of the past several years, where manufacturers and developers and designers change the terms of the product after the sale and do not allow you the same rights that they give themselves. So, for instance, there are people that disagree with this new policy because it is not one of the terms of the sale that they agreed to, and they asked for a refund. They were told, I was denied automatically because the game is played for more than 2 hours, the refund policy upper limit. Which then begs the question, if I can't get a refund because I've played the game for more than 2 hours, why the fuck are you able to change the terms of the sale after 2 hours?
That's the one. This is the one. However, I do think this is unfortunately conflating between Steam and PlayStation. Steam does have its 2-hour policy. That's one of those things that, look, if you don't know if you like a game or not after 2 hours, I can understand that. The issue that I'm taking with this is that, and I want to clarify, this is not the devs, this is not Arrowhead. I think that they're unfortunately bearing the brunt of this when this is a Sony decision. If you look at the official post from the Helldivers, it was signed off by Sony, right? Sony Interactive Entertainment. Sony is the ones that set this through. They cannot put something out like that without Sony's consent, because do you know how many Sony lawyers and how many Sony legal team personnel would be on them if they posted something saying this is signed off by Sony without Sony's consent? So clearly, this is a Sony decision. Now, I inherently disagree with a company, with an entity such as Sony, because realistically, Sony should know better. At mom and pop shop, well, hey, we looked at this, and unfortunately, we're going to change this, right? Sony doesn't deserve that grace. Sony should know, especially in 2011. Sony should know. PlayStation should know. There is no excuse that you can give them, in my opinion. And if they're going to change an agreement, especially when we have people like Pirate Software, right, citing with the Wayback Machine how they went and retroactively changed the policy, I think that should open up the company to a what's the word I'm looking for? It should open up to a counter, right? Like, well, you're changing this. We didn't agree to this. I'm still not agreeing to this. We need to have a talk, and your legal team needs to be on standby. Not that you're suing them, obviously, or at least you have the initial intent to sue, but you need someone to be able to say, look, we're talking about this, but Kip, that would overload them, and they only have so many workers, and their legal team's time is money. Well, how about you, hear me out, make your terms and service valid the first time around, right? How about you put out a product, and if you need to change the product, especially any legal agreements, right? And there are certain things within legality, such as click wrapper agreements, which I am not a lawyer. That is one of those things someone like legally would be better to explain stuff like that on, and how legally binding stuff like that can be in comparison to other things like written signed contracts. That's one of those things I do not give Sony grace on. And if you're going to change that, I have the right to counter and ask for a refund, because at that point the game has changed. For all intents and purposes, the game has changed at that point. You are now selling me a different product. If I were to have Joe Schmo, Jane Doe, buy Helldivers now, would the terms of service be different, not be different than when I bought that? And that's the inherent thing. When you start dealing with legality, and I do deal with this a lot in copyright, I am very black and white. I understand that, people are going to be like, we'll give wiggle room. There's a little bit of wiggle room. And yes and no. When you come to legality, say, for example, if somebody says, Kip, Kip, I think that you are doing X, and I don't, in regards to, say, a copyright claim or strike, right? Okay, you are now issuing me legal action. We're in a different ballgame now. This is very black and white, very professional. I am a no-nonsense kind of guy. When you start making legal claims like that, that needs to be treated seriously. And something like this from Sony, I do treat incredibly seriously.
Like, really, if I play the game for 2 hours, because I played it for 2 hours, I cannot get a refund for a digital good. Why is it that months afterwards, you're allowed to change the terms of the sale?
Exactly.
Because it seems like the rules that apply to me don't really apply to you. And it seems like that's why people are pissed off here. You also have the fact,
if you were to say contract through Sony, and say I was a contractor through Sony, hypothetically, right, in this instance, and I were to say, well, due to the scope of the project and due to emerging factors, I've decided to increase my rate from $20 an hour to $23 an hour. Sony's just going to laugh me off, and they're going to have their legal team, at worst, be like, no, we're going to enforce this. We said we would give you $20. We're not raising it to $23. However, Sony can say, well, looking at your contract, looking at the work that you're doing, we know we were contracting for 18 months, but we need to let you go at this point in time. Okay, it's just not financially feasible. We regret to terminate this partnership. But you see how the rules don't apply to each other. And this is the same issue that I have with Twitch in regards to a lot of the policies and stuff like that, where you can have hot tub streamers, but you have VTubers that do the same exact thing, and there's just this weird discrepancy in their policies. I think that this is absolutely unfair, and gamers, we need to be mad at this, whether you're Xbox, whether you're PC, whether you're Macs, whether you're Linux, whether you're Steam, whether you're Origin, whether you play, whatever, right? We need to be mad at this, because this is going to also set precedent for companies, corporations, entities, etc., to do this in other things in our lives. It doesn't stop with video games. The buck does not stop here, right? I would argue this also can go into, right, the right to repair, right? Oh, I can sell you an ice cream machine, but because you're not paying our $2,000 a month subscription service fee, right? Well, I can just... Well, it's not just going to work. You have to agree to our thing. If you're not agreeing to our new arbitration clause, why would we make it work? Oh, but Kip, that seems like a reach. Roku TV. If you don't agree to our arbitration policy, you cannot use this product that you bought. Cool, right? That's not how that should work.
At Sony, when it comes to customer service, to be clear, I have praised them when it comes to their website for getting parts to old Sony cameras. That part's good. Those people rock.
Sure, awesome.
PlayStation Network account, these people are horrible. Their customer support is complete and utter garbage. We're not even just talking about the customer service and support being garbage. Like, let's just talk about basic security breaches. I mean, in 2011 and 2014, PlayStation Network got completely and utterly owned. From the 2011 security breach, you had 77 million accounts affected by this. So you had personal information like names, addresses, email addresses, birth dates, PSN account usernames and passwords, and in some cases, credit card details released.
I also want to state, and it's very important to know, apparently in the UK, apparently in certain countries in the world, you are required to verify yourself with a government-issued ID. So if you're in, I don't know, the UK, for instance, trying to sign up for a PSN account, you have to submit your, driver's license, passport, any government-issued ID. Do you feel safe with Sony? Well, Kip, this is, 10, 13 years ago, right? 2011, 2014, it's a different company now. People change, mistakes happen. No, you cannot give companies like this, you cannot give organizations like this that grace. When the moment you start giving them that grace, they will run with that. And then that's how you get situations like more hacks and more data breaches, especially because you are holding details like that. It's why I don't do certain things, such as donations or in certain capacities and stuff like that. It's why I don't. There's certain servers out there, Discord servers, which will actually have you credit card verify, or they'll have you verify in terms of ID just to confirm you are 18. Think like a VTuber with an 18 plus community, right? Sometimes they'll have you verify with something to prove you're 18. I don't do that. I just restrict mine to 18 plus because, one, I don't want to deal with minors. Two, it legally covers me because, look, I've done everything I can to make sure minors don't come here. But three, I don't want to deal with that security because that's serious stuff. Imagine, if you will, I was holding your driver's license in my Discord server, something like that. I don't feel that's necessarily proper. So the moment you're not only dealing with personal identifying information as somebody that worked in finance, right, and had to deal tangentially with fraud, the moment you start working with personal identifying information, but more than that, government-issued IDs, you need to be held to the highest standard, and any breach of that standard, it needed to come down like an absolute just brick truck on you.
why do I have to sign up with an account with you?
Exactly.
The game worked yesterday. Why? Again, to be clear, it's not like I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, my house is going to be broken into as a result of this. But it's just one of those things like, why? Why?
For clarification on that, I believe this is in reference to some of the smart home technology, like having your locks and stuff hooked up to your phone. He has prior videos on this. No,
Let's not
agree.
even forget the concept that even if you read the terms of service and it says that they're not taking your data or selling your data or mining your data,
They could.
they will anyway.
Yeah.
Because when they do, they get a 0.22% fine for it.
Yeah.
No, really, like, why do I want to log into more accounts? I don't
Exactly.
even want to have the accounts that I do. As an American, realizing that my government is a complete fucking joke, I don't even want to have a cell phone contract. The best part, what about people that can't create an account? Because one of the things you may notice, there's a little country drop-down menu when you're registering on a website. And again, if you live in Canada, United States, England or something, well, you're always going to find your country there. But there are people that don't actually have their country in that list. So there are people that paid full price for this game and spent more than 2 hours playing it that are now no longer able to play the game, as you can.
I think that should open Sony up to legal knockback. That these countries themselves, because of this terms of service change, I think they should be able to have a case. That being said, here's the problem: is that if Sony redacts the policy, does that still open them up to liability, or does that absolve them of liability? And that's something that lawyers need to figure out.
See here in this Reddit thread, I effing can't create a Sony account because there is no Kazakhstan in there. This is a fucking deal for me. Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Now, let's say that he played the game for more than 2 hours. Well, sucks to suck, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, this
I
is
appreciate
valid.
that a lot of people are leaving negative reviews. I think they should change their review to negative. I think that this should get as close to 1 star as humanly possible. And then there are the people that miss the point. It's not like this is the first game or even the 14th mainstream game to require a third-party account that takes a couple of minutes to create. But if it's such a deal breaker to have to take 120 seconds out of your day to enter an email and password and then forget about it, change your Steam review and make your displeasure known on a platform where it matters.
I mean, yes, absolutely, and people are making it known on the platforms. I think this is completely missing the point. I think this is a disingenuous take, and I think this is a uneducated and uninformed take. I don't want to have a PlayStation account. I think I have a PlayStation 4 account, PSN account out there somewhere with minimal information, and I don't even want that out there because I only tangentially had a PS4 for a period of time, and it's like, I don't want this, okay? When I purchased Helldivers 2, right, and I've played it on stream, right, I've played this, I've let it be known that I like it, my thoughts and opinions about the game, right? When I played this, and now I'm having to actually be required to make a PSN account or link it to a PSN account. And I'm like, wait a minute, I shouldn't have to do this. You needed to have this day one. If they're going for safety and security and, making a better community, when they were having server issues week 1, should they not have launched the game with this to set that expectation? No. When they launched it, it seemed like it was a completely optional thing. And that's the problem that I run into. You want to retroactively change your terms of service. The product that you sold me, I take an issue with that. You are not, Sony, you are not allowed to be upset at me for that. You knowingly change this. A decision like this is not done by one person. This has to go through legal. This has to go through several departments. And then obviously this went through Arrowhead. And I guarantee you that some of the devs over there were just like, what is this? Why do we have to put this out, right? This goes through multiple chains of command. Okay? Especially legal, right? You don't have an excuse to say, oh, we didn't know. We're sorry. We'll just walk it back. I think that's absolutely disingenuous.
Fuck you, asshole. When you say 120 seconds, you're going out of your way to say that because it sounds more dramatic than 2 minutes. You want to make the people that are complaining about this issue, rightfully so, because the terms have been changed after the sale, out to seem ridiculous, out to seem like they are petty, like they're stupid, like they are insignificant, like their concerns do not matter when they do.
Mm-hmm.
Why should I sign up for an account somewhere else?
Yeah, why?
Why? Why do I have to? Why should they be allowed to do that to me afterwards? Why should I be locked out of a game that I bought and paid for that I cannot even get a fucking refund for simply because of the latitude and longitude at the time of my birth? Yeah. Why? I'm sorry. Do people in Kazakhstan not deserve to be able to play this fucking game that they bought and paid full price for? Really?
Valid.
Really? Tea taxes were not really much in the colonies, and it was still cheaper to buy from the British than it was to buy from the Dutch. It wasn't about the number. That was not the point. You had the Townsend Acts, and you rescinded everything but the T-tax, and then you put another T-tax on top of it. It wasn't about the amount that you were paying, because it was still more money to buy tea from the Dutch. It was about not wanting to take the King of England's cock down your throat. And I think this is how gamers feel right now.
It's the concept.
It's not about having to register for an account. It's about not wanting to take Sony's cock down their throat when Ubisoft and every other major provider are trying to find new, innovative, and creative ways to do this. Stop giving companies like this money. There are enough amazing games that have been created that do not require updates ever, that do not require connections to the internet, that you could play these games from now until the end of time, not have a job, not have a family, not go to sleep, not go to work, and still not complete all of them.
Yeah.
I'm not even telling you to give up games.
No.
Why do you have to play these modern games that treat you like garbage? Play Parasite Eve 2, Final Fantasy 9. Spanky's Quest on Game Boy. In all seriousness, there's so many good games out there that don't do this to you.
Exactly.
You know, it's one thing if I was telling you abstain from gaming. And to be clear, you don't even have to abstain from gaming altogether. Even with modern gaming, you could simply buy titles that are released by companies and studios and networks that don't take part in this bullshit. There are tons of people out there that do not require you connect to any sort of account at all. You not register or log into any other third-party thing. There's no DRM. There's no rootkit anti-cheating shit running in the background. But for some reason, people decide to run to games like this.
Okay. As somebody that did buy and was actually very displeased by how Naruto Storm Explorato Connections did their thing, the sole reason I bought it was because this is effectively the new format I'm buying into, right? Let's take it in a couple different directions, right? And I do have a little bit of feedback on this, and it'll tie back into the point. So if you're playing a card game, right? Say you're playing Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, etc., you effectively are buying into a format, right? So say, oh, well, I want to play Yu-Gi-Oh GOAT format, okay? You need your GOAT format staples. You're going to need to make sure you got your cards, lists, and supplies, etc., stuff like that. You're going to make sure that you get some of the chase cards, right? So you're buying into a format. In Magic the Gathering, when you're buying into Standard, as rough as a place that it's in, because, Commander exists, you buy into Standard, right? You are buying into a format, right? You are spending the money to get into the latest thing, right? That kind of thing. In a game, let's look at Call of Duty, right? Why do people buy the new Call of Duty every year? I mean, sure, you could go back to Call of Duty World at War on PC. Sure, you could go back to old Modern Warfare 2. Sure, you could go back to Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 3, right? However, if you buy it on a yearly basis because you're paying that front, you're paying the bouncer, right? You're buying your way into that latest and newest format. That's all that is. And so from that standpoint, I absolutely see why people want to buy the newest and latest and greatest games, right? I see why people are going to go buy the next Call of Duty when it comes out later this year. I understand why people are going to buy the new Pokemon every single year, despite me thinking Sword and Shield was an infinitely better game mechanically than something like Scarlet and Violet. As somebody that played both Scarlet and Violet and loved them, the mechanical issues, the frame rate drops just makes my head hurt. I understand why people buy it, right? It's why you buy Platinum after I almost said Heart Gold Soul Silver, Platinum after Diamond and Pearl, right? I understand this concept, wanting to be with everyone else, to play the latest Call of Duty, play the latest Warzone. However, he also brings up a good point. Why are you going to buy the new Pokemon Gen 10 games, right? Especially if they're going to have issues, which I called from launch. The windmill in the reveal trailer for Scarlet and Violet had a very bad frame rate to it, and I called these issues early on. And you could play that. You could spend your money and buy that, or you could find a reasonable price copy of Heart Gold and Soul Silver if you've never played it. And you know what? Yeah, sure, you miss those mystery gifts, and you have to go, potentially find a way to either inject them into your game, find someone with them, right? Yes, there's content you're technically locked out of, and you don't have access to the online service anymore, technically, right? But you can still play it. You can still boot up a DS, a 3DS, and you can play it. You can looking at my copy of the 2000 gold cartridge holographic cover of Majora's Mask for Nintendo 64. You can buy Majora's Mask. You can play it on original hardware. That being said, original hardware is really hard to find, but if you legally own the game, obviously there's talks, debates, discussions, etc., where we have emulation as a tool we can potentially go to. Don't say the E word around Nintendo, though, because Nintendo's going to get a little upset. Sony releasing their Metal Gear Solid project, right? Did people not say that the Metal Gear Solid Remastered Collection, or whatever it was inferior to the 4K textures and stuff and resolution you could get on an emulator? There is a option for emulation here that obviously this comes down to a legal discussion in regards to if you legally own the copy versus not legally owning the copy, if a company is making it available versus not available, right? Where the only way I can get Pokemon Coliseum or Next to Gale of Darkness, the GameCube games, or if I buy actual Pokemon Coliseum Next to Gale of Darkness games, which I do own, they're actually here in my desk underneath me. Ignore that crash. They're in my desk underneath me. But, if the company's not making it available, where does that fall ethically, legally, etc.? There's a lot of things to consider in this. So while I understand where he's coming from, and I do agree with where he's coming from, I can also understand and I can also say this is why people want to buy the new Call of Duty every year. This is why people want to buy the newest, latest, and greatest games, right? We want to consume. We want to spend money, I would argue. At least a lot of us do. I buy stupid crap all the time. Look at Tactikit, for example, right? Smith & Wesson 500. But if you're not getting a quality product, you do have the ability to look elsewhere. Go back and play, I don't know, your copy of Xbox 360 Mass Effect 1. Go back and play your Ocarina of Time copy you haven't touched in years. Go play your original N64 Mario 64, right? Go play Sonic Adventure on your Dreamcast, right? Go play Pong, right? You have a number of these things that you can do, and also a lot of indie games, which some people will just actually say, hey, I made a game, have this for free, right? That's my justification and defense, but also being in line with Louis Rossmann's argument here.
Armored Core 2. Yeah. Earth Siege. Gran Turismo 2. As long as you don't have to deal with the license tests. I hate the license tests. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.
I hope you learned something as well. So first off, I will go and state, Louis Rossmann, thank you for doing the work that you do. As somebody that has watched your Right to Repair videos for a while, followed you for a while, I absolutely do love your content. I think you're putting out amazing work on YouTube, and I really do think that you are making the difference in a lot of cases. I also want to state as well, I hope I've made this as transformative as I can. Louis Rossmann, as anyone I do react to, anyone new that I react to, I do have an open door policy kind of thing. If you're not okay with this, if you're not okay with React content, just shoot me an email. I'm more than happy to comply and take this down if that's what you want. I try to be as approachable as I can, and I can also spread the word as well if you are not okay with React content. I thought this was something that was in my wheelhouse. I thought this was something I could add context to. I thought this was something I could be a little transformative on. So I hope that this was an interesting video, and I hope this opens up potentially a lot of people's eyes for you. I totally did not forget to turn chat off. Let me know in the comments section, 1, what you think of this video. 2, have you watched Louis Rossmann before? 3, is this going to make you watch Louis Rossmann? Do you think he brings up a lot of good points? Do you think that you're going to go watch him because of the points that he does make in this video? He clearly sounds educated, right? I mean, number of YouTube channels that say things that don't have that required amount of education, cognizance, and critical thinking, right? So let me know what you think down in the comment section down below. Almost said combat section again. And I will see you all in the next one. So quite literally hours after this video was recorded, and I do wait the 4 days before a video does go live, Sony did drop another announcement. They did drop an announcement about how they're still trying to understand PC players, and they're still trying to understand this new market, quote unquote. And they ended up rescinding their decision to have PSN, PlayStation Network, be a mandatory thing that they link. However, I do want to also state that as of this video going live, as of this addendum amendment being added to this video, there are approximately 170 countries in which PSN is not available and have been delisted through Steam. I've seen a lot of back and forth in regards to Steam's at fault here, PlayStation's at fault here. I think that Sony's personally at fault. The way that I view this at this point in time is because of a Sony executive decision. Steam did see this as a liability because of the amount of refund requests that we're going through, right? Also because legally there are places in the world, a number of places, hundreds of countries and territories in which you cannot legally make a PSN account. Obviously, there's weird things like in Japan, allegedly there's a localized version that is still available for sales to Japanese players, play with Japanese players. There are certain locations in the world where you still can make a PSN account, but it has to be made through a PS5. So that also leads to an interesting interaction in which you can have people having a PS5 selling services to create a PSN account in those territories and countries, which I think is going to lead to a lot of security liability. At this point in time, I do think that Steam does see this as a liability, unfortunately, and thus I do support their decision. If Sony made this executive decision to remove it from the platforms to avoid liability on their fault, what most likely happens is that Steam will end up kind of making their account, Sony's account, go negative with the amount of refunds. They have the amount to cover it. However, the important thing to note is while this was rescinded, there has been a movement to push for players to bring it back positive. I think that it's a little too soon. I think that this is from Sony, especially the way that they word it. It's not an apology. Oh, we're still learning about PC. Sony, PlayStation, you've had since 2011, since the Great Hack, to kind of get your stuff together, and you're still not getting your stuff together. You have year after year of multiple hacks and data breaches and stuff. You got to get your stuff together, man. Like, this is not acceptable at this point. Ma and pa shop, small indie company, okay, you're a massive corporation. You need to get your stuff together. Like, this is actually quite embarrassing at this point. If you're on PlayStation, cool. Understand that I, looking at all of this, view PSN, view PlayStation and Sony and their safety and security, quote unquote, as an absolute liability to my personal information. This is as a financial decision, as someone that's like, oh, well, maybe I want to get a PS5. Maybe I want to get a PSN. I view this as a liability and potentially the ability to have my identity stolen because of their track record with safety and security. So, the important takeaway here is while this has been redacted as of now, remember, Sony has been caught with the Wayback Machine modifying their TOS retroactively, right? We used to say that, 6 months down the line, they might change it, right? They could absolutely do it. They have set that precedent themselves. But it is still blocked in many countries around the world. Once again, approximately 170. This is not okay. This is not acceptable. Sony needs to be held accountable. If you have issues with Steam, I think that Steam is personally responding to this because they have a massive influx of refunds. Therefore, is it not a liability then? Could they not see it as a liability? Well, we don't want to engage in any illegal practices. Sony did say that we are going to, require a PSN, which is, going through Sony, because Sony could not have posted that without consulting their legal team, right? A big corporation would not have done that, They're seeing it as we don't want to help people engage in illegal activities, therefore we're going to delist it in certain countries around the world. We really can't cave to this because this is we'll just give you an inch, and then they're going to take a mile, and then we're going to have, 2 weeks, 2 years, 3 months down the line, we're going to have another PlayStation thing. We need to be mad about this, gamers. We need to understand that these companies cannot continue to do this. And absolutely, if you need to review bomb something, if you need to change your review and quote unquote hold it hostage, I don't even think it's holding it hostage, because at the end of the day, them modifying their terms of service was in essence a different product. It is a review for a different product than you reviewed. So I felt it would be, a little remiss if I didn't add those updates. I want to thank once again to Louis Rossmann for posting out this video, and everything kind of happened at lightning speed, right? We had Moist Critical and a few others post videos, and literally within hours of those videos being posted, PSN, Sony did drop this news. So lightning speed, and this could be reversed. I do want to see all countries in which did buy the Helldivers 2 on Steam, I want to see that restored, and I think Sony has a lot of work that they need to be doing. So thank you for watching. Thank you for letting me do this update segment. I really do appreciate you. Have a good day.